Averages. Another important topic that we have from aptitude. Most of the time students think that averages comprises of one single formula. Then why do we need to study that? My dear friends, when we use that formula to solve most of the questions in aptitude, we are not going to make it through. Because the moment we use a formula, we are going to spend more time in solving the question. In this video, I am going to take you through a multiple variety of questions wherein we'll also understand how can we solve them without using the formula. If you like this video, I would request you to click on the like button. At the same time, do subscribe to our channel so that all the videos that are uploaded from our side comes as a notification to you.
So let's first of all look what average is all about. Suppose if I ask you five numbers, or let me give an example. There's a batsman who has played for 4 innings and his scores are, let's say 50, 59, 61, and let's say a 0. And if I ask you how much runs did he score per inning, now you can't give me an answer as 0 or maybe a 61 or a 59 or a 50. So you have to give me one number value. So what will you probably do? You will make a sum of all these numbers and then divide them by the total number of innings played by the batsman, which will give you a common value which would range probably from 0 to 61, a number which will range in between. So that's what we call as average. So what is the utility of average? When we are looking to have a value in between a given range of values, we term it as average. And how do we calculate? A simple formula for averages would be total of the physical quantities divided by number of quantities. Let me take one more example. I have few values such as 42, 69, 31 and 18, and now I have to calculate the average. So what will I do? I'll simply do a total of these values, which would be 0 carry 2, 6, 6, 12, 12 and 4, 160, whereas the total numbers were 4 and therefore my average comes out to be 40. I know my average is 40 whereas any of these numbers is not 40. But what does this value suggest? That all these values would range somewhere close to this number. It may be a bigger of a deviation like in 18, or on the higher side it may be 69, but yes, it cannot go for that matter that the average of these four numbers would be 40. Now in this particular video, we'll also talk about some very good tricks to calculate averages. For example, now this was a easier of a question wherein there were 2-digit numbers and you could easily add and find out the average. But in case of data interpretations and many such questions, you will be asked to calculate the average of the bigger values. Now let me take some values for instance. So my first value is 5926 and I'm going to take some bigger values, as I said, 5954, maybe 6252. Please stay focused. We are going to figure out the average of bigger values without actually following the regular concept. 6108, let's say. So I have these six numbers for which I have to calculate the average. Now if I'm going to add all these values in the conventional manner, it will be time consuming, especially in the examinations. So what I can do here is I can go with a trick. What would that be? Let's understand. I can see that all these values are ranging from 5000 to 6000. So I can assume any number of my choice which will be a perfect number, as in a complete number which can be ending with couple of zeros or maybe more than that. So I have assumed a 6000 here. You can go for 5000 as well. So when I assume my number as 6000, I'm going to compare this 6000 with all these values. So if I compare 5926 with 6000, I will end up getting minus 74, because my 5926 is 74 less than 6000. Similarly, the other value is minus 46 because 5954 is 46 less than 6000. The other values are plus of 252. The next one is plus of 7. The next one is minus of 113. And the fourth one is plus of 108. Now what I have to do? Let's look for it. So if I add these two values, I'll end up getting minus 5. Then minus 5 and plus 7 gives me plus 2. Plus 2 and plus 252 gives me plus 254. Plus 254 and minus of 46 gives me plus of 208. Plus of 208 minus 74, and I end up getting positive of 134. Now remember, we are looking to calculate the average. Therefore, this 134 is just the total of these values, the total of deviation, I would say. So if I have to calculate the average, I have to divide it by 6, which gives me 6 2s are 12, 6 2s are 12, and I'm left with 20, which is 0.3 something. And what was my average assumption in the beginning? It was 6000. So average of these values will come down to 6022.3. That's one way of calculating average when the numbers are on the higher side. And believe you me, these values were really difficult, which in your examinations may be a little on the lighter side. You will have probably some smaller numbers, and if you go by this trick, you will be able to find out the average very easily. Now let's look at some of the variety of questions and the way of solving them without going through the conventional method, because that's what is going to help me in the examinations. So my first question on the screen is, what is the average of first n odd numbers? Now this is a very commonly asked question. Now let me put it in numbers. So for example, if I ask you what is the average of first 5 odd numbers, let's say. Now when I say first 5 odd numbers, I'm talking about 1, 3, 5, 7 and 9. So what will be the average? I have to add all these numbers and then divide them by 5, because there are 5 numbers. 1 plus 9 is 10, 10 plus 3 plus 7, 20, 20 plus 5 is 25, and therefore 25 divided by 5 gives me my answer as 5. Let's take one more example. This time I'm going to take, let's say 7 odd numbers. 1 plus 3 plus 5 plus 7 plus 9 and plus 11 and 13. And then definitely I have to divide it by 7. So if you add the numerator values, you will end up getting 49 divided by 7, and your answer to this question would be 7. So do you observe what is happening here? The average of first 5 odd numbers is 5, the average of first 7 odd numbers is 7, and therefore the average of first n odd numbers will come down to n. Isn't that wonderful? Because if the question says find out the average of first 100 odd numbers, I need not calculate the value. My answer is simple, and that is 100. And this is proved, right? So if a question comes, find out the average of first n odd numbers. Now that n can be anything, let's say 2000. Then my answer to this question would be 2000. Let's look for another one. Now what about if this n even numbers are in the question? So let me take the average of first 4 even numbers. Now first 4 even numbers would be 2, 4, 6 and 8. And when I have to divide it by 4 to calculate the average, what do I get? I'll be getting 20 divided by 4, and which means my average is 5. Let's take first 5 even numbers. So it will be 2 plus 4 plus 6 plus 8 and plus 10 divided by 5. What do I get? 2 plus 4, 6, 6 plus 6, 12 plus, and anyways, this is going to be 30 divided by 5, and my answer is 6. So do you observe that? Now for 4 values, the answer is 5. For 5 values, my answer is 6. Hence for n even numbers, my answer is n plus 1 straight away. Can you believe this? So now if a question comes, find out the average of first 218 even numbers. So what will be my answer? My answer will be 219 without solving this question. This is how we have to approach a paper. It cannot be going through the conventional manner. Let's increase the level of the questions. Now this time, instead of odd or even, it has become natural numbers. Let's talk about first 6 natural numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. And we have to find out the average. So we have to divide it by 6. This is a general formula. So 1 plus 2 is 3 plus 3, 6, 6 plus 4, 10, 10 plus 5, 15 plus 6, 21, and 21 divided by 6. So what do I get? my value would be somewhere close to 3 point, and I'm not worried about it because I know that the sum of first n natural numbers, please understand, sum of first n natural numbers is n multiplied by n plus 1 by 2. And if I have to find out the average, what I'll be required? I'll be required to divide this sum, which is n plus 1 by 2, divided by the total number of values, and therefore my formula for average for first n natural numbers will be n plus 1 by 2. You can even cross check it here. There were 6 natural numbers, so my n is 6. So 6 plus 1 gives me 7, and 7 by 2. You do not get confused because this upon cancellation will give me the same value, in fact 2. Yeah, so this is 7.2. That's how it is. Let's look at another one. Now this time the average of 5 consecutive numbers. Now this can be any set of 5 consecutive numbers. This time we are not talking about first 5 numbers or so. So this is a question based on normal average process. Now the question says the first 5 consecutive numbers gives us an average of 63. What is the product of first and the last number? So how do we do it conventionally? Let's look at the traditional method first of all. I assume that my first number is x. The second number becomes x plus 1. The other one is x plus 2 because they are consecutive numbers. So x plus 3 and x plus 4. These are my 5 consecutive numbers. Now we are looking for the average, and therefore we have to add all these numbers, and then the all 5 should be divided by 5 to give me a value 63. Now what we do? We add all the x, which becomes 5x, plus 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 gives me 10. And upon cross multiplication, this becomes 63 multiplied by 5. So I get 5x is equal to 63 multiplied by 5 minus 10, which is going to be 5 threes are 15, 1, 5 6 are 30, 31 minus 10. I'm trying to take as much time as I can because that's what you do. So x is equal to nothing but 305 divided by 5, which is going to give me 61 as my first value. Now this is just the first value. If x is 61, x plus 1 will be 62, this will be 63, 64 and 65. And the question is, what is the product of first and last number, which means 61 multiplied by 65. So what will be the value? I'll be getting 5, I'll be getting 6 6 are 36, and then I can, in fact there was a carryover, therefore this will become 3965, and that's my answer. But do you see that we have adopted the traditional manner of calculating this question? We should not be doing it. So how do we do it then? Now please understand this carefully because this is going to help us a lot. My average of first, or in fact any 5 consecutive numbers, is 63, which means suppose there are 5 places and the numbers are consecutive and the average is 63, which means because there are odd number of values, this 63 should be my middle value. Do you understand? Because then only I can have an average of 63. That is the mean value. Therefore, my left value would be 62 and 61, and my right values would be 64 and 65. So instead of going through all this method of traditional way, I can directly figure out my two extreme values and get the answer as 3965. Now this concept is going to help us a lot. Let's go for another question of the same variety. The average of 5 continuous odd numbers is 113. Now let's not go with the conventional manner. Let's try and figure out if we can solve this question without conventional or traditional concept. So since again there are 5 values, therefore my median or my mean value should be the middle one, which is 113. So what will be my right value? Now please understand that this is odd numbers, so it has to be 115 and this has to be 117. The one on the left should be 111 and 109. So I easily got my numbers. Now the question says which is the second smallest number. My answer is 111. Do you understand how easy a question becomes if you go by the concept rather than going by the conventional methods? Let's take another question. Now the average of 6 continuous even numbers. Now this time it is even numbers. and there are 6 numbers. So let me put the values in this way, and the average is 207. But please understand, if I'm going to put 207 somewhere here, let's say over here or here, the problem is I am having an average of even numbers. Therefore, my number cannot be 207. So it has to be something between, because I have got 207, so it has to be an end result of 208 and 210. Or in fact, 208, and let me just erase this one. So I'm going to write that again for you, because so there were 6 values, and as I said, it cannot be 207 because I am adding all the even numbers. So therefore 207 should be a result of 206 and 208. Therefore, my middle value should be 206 and 208. And then thereafter, because we are going for even numbers, this has to be 210 and 212. On the left hand side, it has to be 204 and 202. And now the question says, what is the sum of the smallest and the largest value? So this is the smallest and this is the largest. My sum would be 414. Straight away my answer. So as you see, I mean, this becomes pretty easy when we go by the concepts. Let's understand few more of those. Now, these are some basic questions that are asked from the problems on ages, wherein average is an integral part of it. The average age of 10 students, please pay attention, is 20 years. So the average age of 20, in fact 10 students is 20 years. If a new student is included, then the new average of all student increases by 1 year. The age of the new student is. If we go by the traditional method, let me explain it to you in the traditional manner. So if we go by the traditional manner, I would say that age of first student, age of second student, and likewise age of 10 students divided by 10 is given as 20 years. Now, if a new student is included, now let's assume that a new student joins. So other than these 10 people, there is the 11th guy who has joined, and now the average increases by 1 year. So we have to find out the average of the, or the age of the new student. So I have to figure out what is A11 in this question. So what we do, we figure out the value of A1 plus A10, and we get that value as A1 plus A2 plus A3 till A10, and that value comes out to be 200. We put this value in this equation, so it becomes 200 plus A11 divided by 11 is equal to 21, and therefore my 11th student will have the age of 21 multiplied by 11 gives me 231 minus 200, and therefore my answer here is 31 years. Now, how long this method is? If I'm going to use this method for a concept of averages in competitive exams, it is not going to fetch me a good result. The outcome would be the answer only, but I'll not get selected. So what do we do then? Now, please understand, this is the most important thing that we have to understand in averages. What is that? Now, if there is a new student who has joined and the average increases by 1 year, which means this 1 year can virtually be seen to be added to all the 11 people. What does that mean? That means a total of 11 years got increased because of a new person joining the team. A total of 11 got added to the numbers or to the average value because there's a new person who has joined. Why? Because 1 year got increased as an average, and there are 11 people, so there will be 11 years of increment. But the average was 20, which means the person who has joined us should be 20, which is the average value, plus the increment value, which is 11, and hence the age of the new person should be 31. That's my answer to the question. So I am not going to go by the conventional methods. I'm repeating this again and again because students do this. Let's look at few more variety of questions and see if we can adopt the same methodology here as well. The average weight of 24 wheelers is 180 kilograms. Now, if I go by the conventional method once again, W1 plus W2 for 24 wheelers, and therefore I have to divide it by 20, comes out to 180. Yep. If a new or if an old car is removed from this group, now in the earlier question there was a new person who got added. In this question we are going to remove one car from the lot, which means let me remove the 20th car, and therefore there are only 19 cars this time. The new average weight decreases by 2 kilogram and hence it would become 178. Now the question is, what is the weight of the removed car? So we have to figure out what was the value of the 20th car. Now again, if we go by the conventional method, do the cross multiplication, put the values of W1 till W, or in fact the W1 plus W19 in this first equation, and then do the subtraction and addition if required and get the final value. But again, this is a conventional method. How can we do that? Let's see. So if there are 20 cars and the average weight is 180, that means the total weight would be 3600 kilograms for all the 20 cars. Now what happened? Because there was one car removed and the average decreased by 2 kilograms. Because there were 20 cars and the average got decreased by 2, which means if I am left with 19 cars and there are 2 kilograms of the weight which got reduced from the average, which means there would be an average reduction of 2 from each one of them. Therefore 19 twos are, I would say that a total of 38 kilograms got away. That much got removed, which means the average of each car was 180. So the car which got removed had average and even also took this extra value with it, which means 180 plus 38, therefore 218 kilograms got removed from the total value, and hence my weight for the removed car would be 218 kilograms. That's what it is. Now you need to understand how are we adding, how are we subtracting those values from the final outcome. Let's look at another question. Once again, the average weight of 6 servants is 28 years. So let's say the servant 1, this is servant 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Their average weight is 28, and since it is an average I have to divide it by 6. Now again a conventional method. Now a new and young servant replaces one old servant. So let's suppose S1 goes off and S7 joins. S7 is a younger one. So what happens now? This is going to be S2 plus S3 plus S4. Again, I'm doing it with the conventional method, but remember we are not going to go with this method. So S7. Now this time it is a replacement. Therefore, number of people will still remain the same, that is 6. And the average weight reduces by 1, which means if it was 28, now it is 27. And we have to find out what is the value of S7. Again, if you go by the conventional method, you can put the value of S1 till S6 over here, and then you can look to figure out the answer. But what is so different here? It is we neither know S1 nor we know S7, which means the person who was removed, we do not know his weight, and the person who got added, we do not know his weight as well. And therefore, this is a typical question where my answer would be cannot be determined or can't be determined. Why? Because I do not know the value of the person who was removed. Similarly, I do not know the value of the person who joined, and therefore I cannot have a reference point, and thus I cannot calculate the answer over here. So please be careful while you get certain questions in examinations. You can't calculate the values of such questions. Next one, average weight of ABCD is 40 kilograms. Now I'm just going to write them in form of equations so that you can understand it pretty well. So average weight is 40 kilograms. This is how I can represent it. E joins the group and the average weight increases by 1. So I'm going to put E also in the equation. and we'll see what is the impact. So now there are 5 people. E joins and the average increases by 1, which means it becomes 41. Now, person F replaces A, which means A is gone. Do not worry about the order because that does not bother me at all. It's anyways a sum. And the new age of 5 persons becomes, or the new average becomes 42. So these are the 3 changes that has happened. Firstly, the average of ABCD was 40, then ABCD and E becomes 41, and this time A got removed and F got added and the average becomes 42. Now we have to find out the average of B plus C plus D plus F divided by 4, and this is what I have to calculate. If I go by the conventional method, I have enough of equations to solve this question. But let's not try that. Let's see, can we do that without using the traditional methods? So I can see that the initial average was 40, whereas when E joined, it increased by 1, which means when E got added, there were 5 people. If average increases by 1, therefore, the values virtually for each one of them should have increased by 1. And initially the average was 40, therefore, I can say that E has brought this value into the calculation, which means the weight for E is 45. Now, if I come back to this equation straight away, and I can say that I know the value of E from this place. So if I put the value as B plus D plus C plus F plus 45 is equal to 42 multiplied by 5. What do I get? I get B plus C plus D plus F divided by 4 should be equal to 42 multiplied by 5 minus 45, and this should also be divided by 4. So what do I get? 42 multiplied by 5 is going to give me 210 minus 45. So it will be giving me 165 divided by 4. So that would be 41.25 as my answer. So some part of it was done by traditional method, but the earlier part was done with the new sort of method that we have understood in this video. Let's take another variety of question. Now there's a cricketer who has played certain innings and the average of those innings is given. So we have to use all the concepts that we have studied so far to solve this question. Now I'm not going to put the traditional method into place. I'm just going to do it with the quickest manner that I have. So the question says the average of 40 innings of a cricket player is 500. So I know that average is calculated as runs divided by number of innings. And that's what average is in terms of cricket. So from here, I can say that the runs scored by him in 40 innings is equal to 40 multiplied by 50, and that's equal to 2000. So these are the runs he has scored in 40 innings. Now the question says the difference between the highest and the lowest score is 172. That means whatever his highest score was and whatever his lowest score was, the difference was 172. Now the second part says if these two innings are ignored, that means we are ignoring the highest score and the lowest score, and the average comes out to 38. For 38 innings, that is 48. That means the runs that he has scored in those 38 innings will be equal to 38 multiplied by the new average, which is 48. So can I do the quick calculation? 38 multiplied by 48, what would we get? 8 8s are 64, 6, 4 3s are 12, 18, 24. Yeah. So this is what he has scored in 38 innings. Which means if I calculate the difference between these two, I will be getting the total runs scored by him in the highest, or as the highest run, and as the lowest, and that comes out to 176. Now the question says find the highest score. So I know two equations, highest plus lowest is equal to 176 and highest minus lowest is equal to 172. I'm simply going to add them up to get twice of highest is equal to 843, which means my highest score is equal to 174. And according to the equation, my lowest would be 2. That's my answer to the question. So you see that we did some calculation, but then we were not doing it in the traditional manner. Another question on your screen. Now this is a good one. The age of a captain of a team is 25 years. So captain's age is given as 25 years. Again, I'm not going to go with the conventional method. The wicketkeeper is 3 years older than him, which means if the captain was 25, wicketkeeper is 28. If you leave these two, okay, we have to leave these two, the average age of the remaining team decreases by 1 year compared to the average age of the whole team. What is the average age of the whole team? Now, where does people get confused here is people always ask that how many people are there in the team? It's not given. But please understand this logic, my dear friend. In a cricket team, the number of players are 11. So which means there are 11 players, out of which one is a captain and another one is a wicket keeper. So if we leave two of them, how many players are left? 9. So let me take the values now. Let's assume that my initial average was X. And therefore, my total age would be 11X because there were 11 people. Now next time, when there are two players removed, that is the captain and the wicket keeper, that is only 9 people are left, the average decreases by 1 year, which means my average would become X minus 1. So the total earlier was 11X when there were 11 people, and total now would be 9X minus 1. And we know that what has happened out of this total, if I remove this, I should get the sum of these two values because these are the people who have been removed. So I got my equation 11x minus 9x plus 9 is equal to 63, and therefore 2x is equal to 63 minus 9, which is equal to 54, and hence my x comes down to 27. Now if x is 27, that means my initial average of 11 players is 27, whereas my average for 9 players would be 26. So, but the question says what was the average of the whole team? My answer is 27, and that's how we can solve this question. Let's look at one last question. The average of 8 observations is 20, which means let's take some observations. Let me take O1, O2, O3. I'm just going to write all of them. O4, O5, O6, O7, and the final one, that is O8. The average is 20. So I'm just going to write the sum directly, which is going to be 160. 20 multiplied by 8. By now you should be very much comfortable in writing this statement. Now the average of the first two and the next three observation is 15 1 by 2 and 21 1 by 3, which means the average of these two is 15 and a half, which means the total of these two should be 31. I hope you would agree. And the next three observations have an average of 21 1 by 3, which means the total should be 64. What I'm doing, I'm just multiplying 15 and a half with 2 because there are 2 people, and over here it is 21 1 by 3 multiplied by 3 because there are 3 people. So my equation here becomes 95 plus O6, O7, that is observation, and O8 is equal to 160. Now the question says if the 6th observation is 4 less than the 7th. So let's assume the 7th observation is X. So my 6th observation will become X minus 4 because that's how it is. So 6th observation is 4 less than the 7th and 7 less than the 8th, which means my 8th observation would be X plus 3 because the difference between these two should be 7. So if I form the equation now, 95 plus X minus 4 plus X plus 3 is equal to 160. And I have to find out what is the last observation, that is O8, and I already took the value as X plus 3. So if I add these values, it is going to be 3X minus 1 plus 95 is equal to 160, whereas 3X will become 160 minus 94, and I'm going to get 66, which means x will come out as 66 by 3, and that is going to fetch me 22. That means my last observation will be 22 plus 3, and that is 25. So these are the types of average questions that we get in most of the placement papers. So I would suggest you all to go through all these questions once again, not by the conventional method, but by the trick, or but by the shortcut methods that we have used for all these questions. And in the beginning of the session or in the video, I was also talking about how to calculate average for some bigger values, and we actually took some examples. So I would suggest everyone to go through this video once again and understand this simple called topic, which is average. Thank you.
If you like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon to never miss a video from upGrad.